Ooh, damn. What's that sound? It's another podcast called Callbacks. Ooh,
Sheesh.
wow. Ooh, well,
Freestyle
well.
rapping underground legend. That's Deacon Dan, Danny Sellers that you're hearing, and I am
Yeah.
Sam Salem. We are back with a remote episode of Callbacks.
Yeah, remote controlled AI technology, the future. This is the future of podcasting, people. We're not
Half
going
the
to be
time, I don't even
together.
think you talk in full sentences. You just play word association games with yourself as you're
Yeah,
speaking.
that is
It's just
actually accurate.
accurate, correct,
Yeah,
on
I am
point.
AI.
What is up, guys? We're doing a little remote episode with just us two lads because I am back in my hometown taking care of some family stuff. Back in Murder Grove, Minnesota, aka Maple
Ooh,
Grove.
Murder
Can I tell
Grove.
you, living in LA, you don't see many Buicks, but in
Oh,
my
yeah.
hometown, you see a lot of Buicks around.
What's the Murder Grove sign? It's like this.
MG, yeah. Or you throw up the V for Maple Grove. All the
Ooh.
kids out here vaping.
Really? Oh my God. That's crazy.
Uh, But yeah, we're I don't know, a lot of Buicks in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Yeah, I mean Buicks are a very Midwest thing. And Buicks and Cadillacs are one of those things where I feel like if we really entertained them as people that live in LA, they're probably really good cars to drive.
Dude, their granddaddies love driving Buicks. I don't know what it
Oh
is,
yeah,
but
yeah.
my
Yeah,
grandparents only ever had Buicks as long as I know 'em. Now my parents hit a certain age and they both have Buicks.
yep.
It's just a shout out to Buick Regal, a beautiful car.
Comfortable space,
Well, before we
comfort.
get into our the meat of the program, let's get into our world famous trademark Danny Sellers mental health check.
Lil Dan mental health check. My mental health this week feels it's been a good week mental health wise. I feel like it's been a really good
I
week.
hate when you have good weeks mental health wise.
I know it's not good for the content. I'm sorry, people. Your boy's feeling good, but my mental health feels like a really good song, but like one of these new age songs to where they don't it doesn't last long enough. Like when it's like,
I know something about not lasting long enough. I'm talking wedding night.
ooh, bussin', fat. I don't know if you should say bus. Bussin'. Can we say bussin' on here? Is that PG-13? Um, but
You are never PG-13, but anyway, continue.
yeah, no, I'm sorry. But you know these new songs where it's like a verse and the chorus verse, and it's only like 2 minutes. I need
Yeah.
one of them old. My mental health to be one of them old school Earth, Wind and Fire songs where it comes in. It's just the beat playing. It's like a quick drum solo, it's the guitar solo. You know, I need that like that long 8 minutes. Frankie Beverly and Maze, like that kind of song.
They never play the song the same way twice because it just turns into a jam sesh.
Yeah, that's what I need. One of my old like Grateful Dead joints. It's just like, is this a 10-minute song? Yeah, I need that for my mental health, not these new TikTok dance songs where it's, I guess it's, I had a good day or a good couple of days of mental health vibes. I need a
It's
month
just,
straight.
it is funny. It is like, it doesn't matter as long as you have a good chorus. Like Lil
Fact.
Nas X, it's like every song is a minute and 50 seconds because they just put it out, hope it goes viral, and then they'll be like, well, someone will put in a verse for the remix, and then they just find some rapper of the
Right.
moment, some artist of the moment.
Tragic.
That's amazing. Shout out
Very
mental
tragic.
health. I my mental health on zero, and that's it. There ain't nothing. There ain't even nothing to say. It's on. It's. I've been. I'm like one of those people who when their car hits 0 miles or 0 gallons miles left,
Yeah.
and then people are like they just that's just to make sure people actually go gas up. There's still 20 miles left. I've passed those extra 20 miles left.
Yeah.
Car is
Yeah.
out of gas. We're on the side of the freeway.
I know my car. No, you don't. You don't know my car. You have no
Actually,
idea.
dude, one of the first times I ever hung out with my wife, we were on the freeway and her car said 1 mile till empty, and she just kept passing all the exits. I'm like, there's gas, but I didn't
Oh,
know her well enough to be like, pull
ma'am,
this car
stop.
over
Right.
and get gas. What are you doing? Because I wanted to be like, you want to be cool and chill. So like as she was driving, I was like, ain't no thing, yeah, it's alright. But inside, I was like, it's nighttime. I'm pretty frail, actually. I don't know where we're at. I was panicking.
And you would have been the one to go jog a mile to go to the gas station. I was driving
Could have been bad.
through I was driving to Arizona from LA last year,
Mm,
and I almost ran out of gas. Cause like these deserts, going from LA to anywhere really,
it's all
Joshua Tree or
desert.
whatever, there's a lot of desert, and you just if you're
No
not
cell phone
properly,
service.
yeah. The
It's
worst time I know we're getting on this run out of gas tip. The worst time I legit thought I was gonna run out of gas, I went camping up in the Upper Peninsula in Michigan.
ooh, the Yoopers.
Yeah, bro, and that I thought that was a wrap. I legit was like, all right, I'm like at any given moment, I like was hitting on the gas and I was just hitting cruise for like a quarter mile, and like touching the gas, hitting cruise, no
That's
AC,
probably worse for your gas
probably, yeah,
mileage. That was
probably
that
to
your
be
get
honest.
out moment. You're like, I don't know, these are different kind of white folk up in the Upper Peninsula.
Right, it's super, yeah, super remote. It's no black people. I was legit, and it wasn't. I don't think it was any cell service either, really. So it was just like, if we're stuck, we're really stuck.
I love that, and by I love that I mean that sounds awful. Um, fill up your gas tank, people. Get a Costco membership. Get your cheap gas, and it all comes back
Literally,
to Costco.
literally or figuratively, fill up your gas. That's another mental health check.
Say it like, ooh, look at that neat little bow you're putting on it.
I'm
All
a
right.
deacon.
Normally we have a cute little guest to introduce and talk about their life, but it's just us boys this week for the third episode
Woo!
ever, and we're going to be doing a little callback to the times that I feel like you and I are both in a similar spot in comedy where we're like kind of full-time comedy, but then we're kind of like, when's my next paycheck coming? I still
Yeah,
substitute teach a little bit. So I
facts.
thought it'd be fun to do a callback down memory lanes to all the jobs we've worked before getting into comedy. I've mentioned my first job I ever had on this podcast, so you're a bad friend if you don't remember any.
Was it the coaching?
We got beef, man. And speaking of beef, my first job was at Five Guys Burgers and Fries.
Sorry, I don't listen. Sorry. That's
Sorry, I only listen to interesting things.
that's why I'm single now. I'm just playing.
Ooh, ooh, ooh.
No. That was a joke. That was a joke. That was a
Love
joke.
it.
Comedy. This is not real.
We got nothing we say is real.
This
Alleged,
is all
everything's
fake.
allegedly,
Allegedly, yeah, allegedly,
as if we're trying to
allegedly.
not get sued by ourselves.
Maybe we're talking specifically about our own lives. Like, yeah, allegedly, yeah.
Allegedly, I went to the grocery store last night. What was your first job ever, Danny?
First job ever. I was in college and I was a camp, like a YMCA summer camp counselor.
Like after your freshman year or sophomore year?
I think this might have been after sophomore year.
Old to be having a first job. Wow,
Yeah.
look at you, privileged. While I was over here pulling myself up on my bootstraps.
Well, I'm sorry. This was I had one freshman year where I was a part-time park camp counselor, and I
Ooh,
was even chiller. It was like 3 days a week. But the thing was, even though we were broke, we were massively broke growing up in high school, or
right.
whatever. But my mom was just like, I don't want y'all working because you have to work for the rest of your life. And even in high school, we also played sports. And so we didn't have time to like go work at Publix or the local grocer and make any significant money because we were at practice or at weight, lifting weights, or
Right.
we would work like once a week for $50. Like it wouldn't have been enough money to make a difference anyway. So she was just like, focus on sports, focus on school. And I didn't have a real job ever until midway through college, more or less.
That honestly, that's incredible. I think that's um, like my family was pretty standard middle class, but like I did grow up very privileged in the sense that it was like a very nice school district, very nice. I had my own room, could play any sports I want. But like I feel like I didn't realize that like the the biggest privilege I had is like just I was allowed to be a kid. Like it sounds like that's what your mom was
Yeah.
trying to do too. Like I'm gonna just like my parents. Looking back, I didn't realize at the time did a very good job of being like, I'm just gonna let you be a kid. Almost
Yeah,
to the point where
that's
I became an adult and I was kind of like a little overwhelmed. Like, wait, these bills are all the time. But at the moment, it was like I really was just able to be like worry about kid stuff, which I realize now like that's not a lot of like
a
that's not a
hundred
lot of people's
percent.
childhoods.
100%. And it was definitely like we were aware of certain financial things. We weren't always kind of fucked up financially, but by the time I was in high school or so, weren't in a good spot. And yeah, I was able to just focus on sports, school, being social, hanging out with friends, and not like leaving football practice and clocking in as a bag boy making $8 an hour
Right.
for 6 hours. Like it wouldn't have made a difference either way. If I wasn't playing sports, maybe it would I could have made a decent amount of money, but a legit minimum wage jobs back then, I legit probably would have been making $60 a paycheck. Like it would have been
Right.
bullshit
It wouldn't have been.
after tax.
It just would have been gas money, so you don't run out of gas in the Upper Peninsula.
Right.
What kind of camp counselor were you? Were you like I'm just here to collect a check. Were the kids loving you?
So the first one I did was it was kind of a hood program, like out of the hood. So it was all these ghetto ass kids in North
Just want to make
Carolina.
it clear that Danny is the one saying ghetto ass kids and not myself.
Well,
For
in the
those
pre-production
audio
meeting, you were like, "Well, were they ghetto ass kids or were they good kids?" And by good, you meant you put in air quotes the white ones. But I was like, "Okay, Sam, that's kind of weird." But anyways,
Crazy the stuff I say in pre-production meetings. I say a lot of wild stuff.
yeah, it's like, Sam, we can't say this on air. He's like, "Oh, you sure?" I was like, "Yeah, bro, you can't say that." I was like, "All right, whatever." But anyways, the first one was ratchet. So you just when kids are kind of ratchet and bad, you got to just match their energy in the sense of you can't show weakness. You know, being a substitute, you kind of just have to. If they talk shit to you, you kind of have to talk shit back to them, or else
100%.
they're going to walk all over you because that's just how that's their
You gotta stand
environment.
10 toes.
Yeah, so if you playing a game, you can't just like let the kids win. Like you gotta beat them to bring them down a notch, or else they're gonna talk shit about you or try to dunk on you. They're gonna be violent in
Right.
in nature. And so that was my first gig. But then the YMCA one was a little bit more like middle class kids and even some rich kids. So it was different. It was a lot more sensitive. You had to really listen. You had to break up a lot of little bickering fights, and Toby is trying to steal Tristan's carrots, and he won't stop making fun of him, that kind of thing. But it was all outside though, so it was in the wilderness in North Carolina. So it's leeches, it's mosquito bites, it's bug bites. So you had to take care of these kids, but also not die yourself with like dehydration. So it was minimum wage, a very hard job.
Right.
But it was kind of fun, to be honest, to be outside.
It is crazy, like so many minimum wage jobs. It's basically like these parents like, hey, we want daycare and we don't want to watch these kids, so let's just give these irresponsible minimum wage. Like, okay, yeah, we know they at least don't have any felonies on record, but like they just
That's it.
And obviously, like you're a good guy, and like usually it works out. But they're just like, we're just handing over our kids to like these older kids just
Yeah.
to like have them be outside for 8 hours at a time. Like,
Facts.
it's absolutely like, yeah, it's.
And it was the
crazy.
crazy part about it was, so in summertime, we didn't have scholarships. Like, unless you were taking class, you didn't get paid while we were at school. So we were working out. So we
Oh,
would
because
have,
you're a Division I athlete.
yeah, you said it. I didn't say it. So we would work out in the morning at like 5:36. Then I would go to the Burlington, North Carolina YMCA at like 7:50, 8 o'clock, be in the sun all day with
Yeah.
these kids. And then we would sometimes have like 7-on-7 scrimmages, or we have to work out again. Like I was in the sun from sun up to sundown, making minimum wage. But it just reminds me of the amount of energy you have when you're 19, 20,
Yeah.
21. And doing that for like 3 months straight was like insane when I think about it.
Right.
My checks would be like $400. It was like, I remember it was like $480 every 2 weeks. And I was working 40 hours a week. Like crazy.
That is
Crazy.
Yeah, that's like no money at all. Dude, it is funny that I remember that age. Like I said, my first job was Five Guys, but then the year before my sophomore year of college, when I was transferring, I would work 3 days a week as a nanny. Shout out all my male nannies out there. Manny, I was on my Manny vibe, dude.
That's disgusting.
And then the other 2 days a week, I'd work in like I was an assistant to this HR lady where I would just do all this like literally just scan paperwork. Like I was digitizing like boxes and boxes. It was like guys from the warehouse getting written up from 2006, and it was like 2012 or whatever. Anyway, but it is like but I'm like, well, I just want to have fun with my friends. So I'd hang out with my friends till like 2 in the morning, and then have to be up at 6 a.m. to go like nanny kids.
That's crazy. You as a nanny is nasty
To make
work.
it a little better, it was they were my cousins, but
Okay, okay, okay.
but it it was a 5 year old, and then I think a middle schooler at the time, and then like mid to late elementary school. And the oldest was a boy, and so like we would just play wiffle ball, and then the middle girl, she was like chill, but the 5 year old was like a genius. But like at 5, if you're a genius, you're either like a mini adult who you can just like talk to, or you are like evil. Like you are just
Yeah,
like, I know how to
yeah.
manipulate everybody and everything. And she did not want me as her nanny. And
Can we find
so
a different name for this nanny? Like, do we have to call it a? Like, what's the? Like, is there a masculine version of like just big bro? Like, I was big
wow,
bro.
dude, why can't men be nannies, Danny?
I'm
That's very
sorry.
toxic,
I'm
bro.
still working on
I
myself.
was I feel like child care provider sounds
Yeah,
also menacing. I was a child care provider.
just say something like that.
But the 5 year old did not want me as their caretaker. And
Uh-huh.
most 20-year-old dudes are not nannies, as you have being uncomfortable about with it. So anytime like I'd be at the park,
Like a
and it'd be
diaper bag.
yeah, and it'd be me and like 7 other 16 to 25-year-old women. Just like it was
Yeah.
just like I was like the only dude. So I was always getting weird looks. And my 5 year old, she like cousin, she picked up on the fact that like, oh, he
Doesn't want to be
like
there.
it's no, it's like it's weird. Like it's weird that we have a guy nanny kind of. I can take advantage of this. So we're walking to the park one day, and she sits down in the middle of the street, refuses to get up, and her two siblings are like, "We just want to go to the park and hang out." And I'm like, "Yo, you gotta come on, come on." I'm trying to reason. So finally, 5 years old, so I just like scoop her up to just like I'll just carry her the mile to the park, whatever. She starts screaming, "Stranger danger! Stranger danger!" and was trying to get the neighbors in the neighborhood to call the cops on me because all of a sudden they look out and there's just a little 5 year old girl being picked up by this 20-year-old male, and it just was like,
Like athletic college athlete, man, that's
yeah. So
crazy.
if her siblings hadn't been there to be like, hey, he's good, he's with us. She's just throwing a temper tantrum. Everyone's just kind of looking like,
He's with us.
and yeah, and I was like, yeah,
Damn.
I've taught high school, mainly middle school, but like shout out to all the elementary and preschool and kindergarten. I cannot
Yeah, when I was
be
a when
wiping
I was
noses like
a
that.
counselor, I was doing. I think my YMCA days, I had 8 year olds, and that's a weird age because they're not so young that they don't know how to like self soothe, but they
Right,
still have the very much like territorial like like looking for approval from the superiors and that type shit. So it
right,
was just like in between where it's like, bro, you know you're doing wrong. Don't do this
right,
versus, but also kind of like you have to teach kids because kids come from different backgrounds too, so you just have to accumulate the mean of everybody's temperament and set everybody straight. But that right there showed me that I could never ever be a teacher because I would be mentally exhausted leaving that parking lot, that YMCA parking lot, every single day. And I
yeah,
remember seeing kids like because it was all the same neighborhood and like community. So I would see the kids in other places. I'm like, bro, let me just turn the other cheek because I do not want to, Mr. Daddy. I'm 2019, 2021. Who knows what I was doing in public? I could be
right.
buying beer illegally or whatever, doing all kind of wild shit.
Not that you'd ever break the law.
Oh, I would. I used to. Allegedly.
Okay, I don't want to.
Allegedly.
I don't.
What,
I don't work with rule breakers. I'm out of the
what was your
podcast.
next? What was your first? Talk to your first adult job, like where you've
So,
made money to like pay your rent.
I mean,
If you've ever had one of those.
nah, really, it was my first adult job was marrying Lucy and keeping her
Yeah.
happy so she'd pay the bills.
Shout out to Lucy. That's tight.
I
That's a good job.
So right after graduation, I got I was like interviewing for jobs to work in like sales, but I really wanted to be a coach. And so I got a scholarship. Instead of paying me to be the assistant basketball coach at this college, they gave me a full ride to get my master's and then an apartment, a meal plan, and like, a couple $100 every week. So I was like an assistant, but I was the only assistant coach. So I was like full time
Oh, wow.
working like as an assistant coach. So then when that finished, I was trying to keep the coaching dream alive. So I took a job where I played college basketball as the assistant coach, but they didn't have the budget for it. So I had to be an admissions counselor at the college, making $31,000 a year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just
Big money.
talk about paychecks, sad paychecks,
Yeah, yeah,
sad
yeah.
paychecks. And the school has since shut down because they've hired people like me in admissions and couldn't get anybody to come to their school.
Right.
Dog, I I honestly would love to make a show about working at a failing
College.
small college, like Christian.
Yeah.
Bro, I would go to Christian college fairs and like set up my table, and so it's just like a bunch of weirdo homeschool kids, and I can say that because I was homeschooled for a bit. Okay, y'all homeschoolers, you're weird. Okay,
Gang,
we're
gang.
weirdos, and so it would be like the kids that would come, like my graduating class for college was like, I don't know, 100 people or something like
Yeah.
that. Like it was
For a
tiny
college?
for a college. Like there's no way it was like much more than 200 people. Like
So it's probably like what, 600 total students? 600
yeah, it
total?
was like there's grad students on campus, so I think like our campus had like around 2,000 people, but
That's
like
insane.
it was honestly just like a big high school.
Right.
But the people that go to our school would be like, yeah, my high school graduating class was 17. Like this was like the big step up to them. And like those are the kind of kids that
Oh my God.
those were the kind of kids that I would like have to convince to go to the school, and their email addresses. Like kids just like make email addresses when they're like in 6th grade or whatever,
Yeah.
and then they forget to change them to something professional. And so they'd be reaching out to me like, what do I need to do to gain acceptance in your school? And the emails would be like, Country Boy Rockstar 1999. That was one. Or this one kid, Minion for Jesus.
Nice.
Like I am one of
Nice.
Jesus's minions. I am carrying out his work.
That's tight.
The craziest one was um horse horse girl anime lover big guy 27.
That's freaky. They're definitely in jail now.
100%
They're in jail.
in jail. And so, yeah, that was my first job. And it was also like, I mean, I go to church, I have like faith, but I kind of sometimes don't like talking about it because there's a lot of Christians that are wilding out, just full of hate and or weird religiousness. And those are like the kind of people. Have we talked about this on the pod? Those are the kind of people that I would talk to. Like I'd get parents that would call me to make sure that the
yeah.
school was Christian enough for them.
Oh, like strict enough? Yeah, 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 yeah.
And so I can't remember. Sorry if I've talked about this on the pod, but like one time this mom called in because we'd have chapel 3 times. You had to go to chapel. It was 3 times a week. You had to go to so many. Otherwise, you couldn't like graduate or you couldn't pass the semester if you didn't go to chapel. So and chapel would just be like, they'd play 30
I don't think we
minutes.
talked about this. I don't think
Really?
we talked about
Okay.
this.
Okay, cool. So chapel is just like, for those that don't know, you'd go, it'd be like, they'd play like 3 worship songs, you'd sing some worship, and then a pastor, a professor, or a student would just like share a message. So it's kind of like a mini version of church, but it's not exactly
Okay.
church. And it's like, it's 100% not church in the sense of like all these like specific religious keeping the sacraments or whatever. It's just it's meant to be like a teaching time, but
Okay.
about religion. This mom called in and was like, now do women speak at this chapel? And at first I'm thinking like, she wants to make sure like
Yeah.
we're not one of those places where I'm like, oh yeah,
Women
of course.
can't
We have
speak. Right.
women speak all the time. And she's like, and I realized quickly that she was coming from a point of like, women are not allowed to speak in church. They must be submissive. And I'm like, what on earth? And so then I kind of just pivot, and I should have been a little more I should have just called her out
salesy.
on it, but I'm just like, I'm making $30,000 a year. This
Yeah,
woman, I'm
you
not.
don't get paid enough to give a fuck.
Yeah, so I'm just like, I'm just trying to get this interaction over with. So I'm just trying to pivot, like, oh, it's not church. It's basically a class. You don't got to worry about it. And she goes, okay, good, because I would never send my son or even my dog or daughter to a place where women preach. And I'm like, hold up, why is dog and daughter in the
Right.
same sentence?
Before your
And
daughter, that's great.
yeah. And so I was like, I can't deal with this job. So
I've so for me, college is interesting. I know we're not talking about college, but kids that go to schools that are super religious, like most schools down south were founded by churches. You
yeah,
know, like Duke and Elon and just a bunch of
yeah.
schools are like that.
Because
So
y'all were
there's
the Fighting Christians, right? Elon
yeah,
was the Fighting Christians before the
yeah.
Phoenix.
It was founded as the Fighting Christians, and then in the 2000s they changed it to the Phoenix. So
Crazy.
most of these schools have churches on campus and stuff like that, but it was not strict at all. Like I mean, I don't think there were certain dorms where weren't boys allowed or whatever at a certain time, but there was co-ed dorms, all that kind of stuff. Could not imagine going to a school that was strict like that, or also military schools. But like people that go to these
Yeah.
schools, I feel like they kind of swear by it and they don't really trip off of it. But I'm like, I could not imagine. I had a good friend that went to the Citadel in South Carolina,
Right.
and it's like you had curfews. You couldn't do this. You couldn't do that. You couldn't
Yeah.
if you didn't come in at a certain point. Like Niles was saying, like in
Yeah, we
Niles'
had Niles on the
episode,
podcast. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, Niles absent. Like if you didn't come in at a certain point, you had to stay out. Type shit. Like it was crazy. I mean, I could not imagine doing all
Right.
that stuff. But that's your normal, I guess. Once whatever your normal is, you just adjust to it and you find ways to have fun within that
Right.
normal.
Yeah, that's crazy. But anyway, so that was my first like adult job, and then yeah, kind of just from there, my wife got a job out to LA. That's why we moved, and so I pivoted from coaching college to coaching basketball or coaching high school basketball. And I had my master's in education in undergrad, so that's when I like officially started teaching, and then that's what I did all up until now, where I sub. But my main money is off of Texas State Influencer, off of
Ooh,
the brand
feet
partnership
pics.
deals. Yeah, yeah,
Teacher feet pics.
you know the vibe. So anyway, yeah, walk us through your what was your first? I know you were in sales. We kind of
My
talked about it
LinkedIn.
the very first
Yeah,
episode.
my
But what was
first
your
job.
employment journey?
Yeah, my first job out of college. So I had another extra year, and I left school. I graduated, but I had another year of eligibility left. But I left prematurely. So I was just over football and stressed out, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I wanted to do something entrepreneurial, but I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And so I don't know if I told this on the pod either. So it's like after winter break, I go, and I officially announce that I'm not returning to the football team, and I'm not transferring elsewhere. Like not these days, a lot of the kids in sports have the transfer portal, so it's a lot easier for kids to move. And if I was probably going to school now, I probably would have
Right,
done that because it was just like you can just put your name in, people reach out to you, and it's simple.
right.
Whereas for me, it wouldn't have been 10 years ago at this point. So, anyways, I go
Old
to
ass
the
man.
yeah, no, exactly. We're all getting old, dog. It's crazy. I went to the career services, and she's like, "What do you want to do?" Like, I had nothing really set up. I think I might have had I had like one internship credit that I needed to do, which was like bullshit, and then I had the camp counseling experience, but that was it.
Right.
She was like, "What do you want to do?" I was like, I don't know. I just don't want to do anything boring like sell insurance." And my first job, pretty much all I was getting was like bull. 'Cause I was a business major, so I was getting financial advisor jobs, which essentially they give to anybody because they don't pay you any money.
Right. It's
Like you
just
have
all
to.
commission
It's like
based.
real estate. Like real estate. They don't. Most companies don't give you a
Right.
significant salary or a long. If anything, might give you a signing bonus. You have a great book of business or something like that. But for the most part, you eat what you kill. And so that was all I was getting. I didn't have a great GPA. I didn't have a bad GPA. I think I had like a 2.7 or
That's
something
the
like
most
that.
corporate saying you've said on this podcast. Hey, you eat what you
Yeah,
kill.
dog. I had to get back into my old bag.
You gotta
And
you
so
gotta handle the low hanging fruit. You
yeah,
know.
literally. So the first offer I had, that is crazy. That's a nasty word. The offer that I had, it was for essentially an internship that you had to prove yourself for the summer to then get full-time employment. So I moved
Yeah.
to Charlotte, 2 days, I mean, literally 3 days after I graduated on a Saturday and I started work on Tuesday in Charlotte, North Carolina. So moved all my stuff out of the apartment and was staying with a friend. And I had to sell essentially 10 life insurance policies to earn my full-time job. Mind you, I signed a lease and everything in Charlotte. And I was only making like $100 a week or something like that in this internship. And then whatever I sold, life insurance wise, I got that commission too. So I don't
And
even
you're
know
just doing
how.
you're cold calling people,
Yes, dog.
which
Cold calling.
that already seems like a scam. Hey, buy this life insurance. That's like, hey, this dude's
Yeah.
just out here finessing.
Ultimately, yes, it is a scam because what they do is they say, all right, we're going to get 20 kids or 15 kids every summer. That half of them are only going to sell 3 or 4 policies, but they're going to be out the business. And then we didn't pay them barely anything to be here,
Right.
and we just accumulate policies and stuff like that from people who whatever don't even work in the business anymore. So, anyways, I get to the end of the summer. I'm like one policy away from getting my full-time employment. And
Yeah.
so it's like the last day. And I'm with this couple. I cold called this couple at one point and they were like into it, but like not really. So
Right.
it's like 3:30. Literally the last day I did this one policy. I call these people up, they don't really answer. And my boss at the time, this is such a very like kind of fucked up capitalism thing. He's like, yo, you better fucking do it. Like find a way to get this policy.
Right.
And I'm just like, what the fuck do I do? And he was like, you need to go to their office and get them to sign. I was like, what?
That's crazy.
And so I just called him up. I was like, hey, I really feel bad doing this, but I don't because it was like survival. I called the girl up. I was like, hey, I'm in your neighborhood. I just got out of a meeting down the street. Wasn't sure if I should stop by or not, but I was just going to stop by type shit. And I'm telling her this at my desk in the office.
From your office,
I don't
I'm just
have
in the
another.
neighborhood. Yeah, crazy. Oh, whoa,
Yeah.
crazy.
So I literally show up, and mind you, on the way there though, she calls me back. Like, hey, Danny. Oh, thank you so much. Like I actually have a couple minutes now. So, anyways, I get her to sign it, whatever, and it was all good, and I end up getting the policy. But
How much were they paying for these?
I mean, a lot of the policies I was selling was maybe $50 to $100 a month, maybe for life
Damn.
insurance. These are young people, so like
Yeah,
I
that's
would
a
maybe
significant amount of money.
yeah, but like I would get like the first year's commission or something like that. So I might for maybe for a year the annual thing that's the annual premium is $1,000. I might get like 500 of that or something like that. It wasn't a crazy amount, but
Right.
you get residuals off of it too. So for like the first 10 years, you get, maybe it might be 50% or might be 70%, then it goes down to 60% or whatever. So people that make it into that business 3-4 years in, they're loaded because they're getting almost like a TV writer. They're getting residuals off of stuff they sold
Right.
3-4 years ago
But
still.
you
at
have
the
to
top
stay
of
at the company in order to get those.
Exactly. So long story short, I was about to walk to this lady's office cold, getting her to sign this thing. And at that point I knew I was like, yeah, this is like not right. Like insurance is a good thing and people need insurance. It's valuable. But right, yeah. But I was like, this is not the right way to go about it in any kind of way. So
Right.
that was like my first job, and I felt like I was really that did teach me a lot of just perseverance and being an adult because I was thrown into the fire so fast of like I got a cold call. I'm 21 years old, cold calling grown-ups and asking like tough questions about their life. And that's
Right.
it probably made me a
And
better
a
stand-up now.
26-year-old compared to a 21-year-old, like these people are like adults. Like they got an
Literally.
apartment and everything.
Bruh, that's who I was talking to. I didn't know any, I knew a couple of old people and I would get referrals to old people, but they weren't going to give me any business. A lot of people I was doing business with, actually selling to were 25, 26, 27, maybe 30. And I'm
Right.
over here, literally 21, 22 trying to do it. And that was my first job selling insurance. And I learned a lot. But then after that, after I left there, that's when I actually got into tech sales. And
Right.
that was the whole thing too. But what was your next
Let's put you
job?
on the spot. What's the most amount of money you made in a year?
Ooh, in a year? Probably would be my last when I was a manager at
Flex.
my last job. I was probably making like 140, 130, something like that.
Sheesh.
Yeah, I was in my mid twenties.
For
I
one
used to.
dude, that's that upper middle class range.
I was in Chicago. Yeah, so that was nice. Living in a cheap city, making good money most
Right.
of my 20s, because you just like rent was like 1,800. Between me and my ex, like it was just not just
Right.
fuck off money. Like it wasn't.
You could
It
you
was
could go out you could go out every night to eat and it really wouldn't matter if you were just
no save money easily if you needed to. Like it just was so much excess at that
yeah.
point. It wasn't loaded by any means, but it was so much excess for someone that was in their mid to late 20s. Was never a good student. Was never expected to be this high earner. Oh my
Right.
goodness! In a Midwest city like Chicago with so much stuff to do, I was always buying shoes and shopping. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. You're looking back at it like I wish I would have been content.
Right, facts. But I knew it wasn't for me. So like
Yeah,
I
for
I was
sure.
talking to somebody about this. Maybe it was a couple days ago at a show. It might have been you. I don't know who I was talking to about this. I'm working harder than I ever have worked,
Yeah.
and I'm making a lot of money. But I'm the happiest that I've been in a long time. Like
Right.
I'm
I
stressed
think we
out.
mentioned that on the pod a little bit. Like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like once you're actually doing what you want to do, like I think
Right.
there's like a Bill Burr, famous comedian, like sound bit that went viral where it was like he's talking to like told a story of like he finally got a joke he had been working on to work and he came home like dancing and his girlfriend at the time is like, you got paid $8 tonight, that's it, and you come home dancing in the kitchen. I wish I had a job that made me feel that happy. Like you're not getting paid at all and you're still coming home like celebrating like you're making all this money or having all this success. I feel like
Yes,
that's
it's
kind of
life
like
changing.
the
Once you kind of find the thing that fuels you, it truly is life changing. And I think what the biggest mistake I did when I was young was thinking that success was going to be the thing that made me happy, right? Like just success, not
right.
what I was successful in, but just the visuals of having tens of $1,000s in my accounts, or
Right.
going to buy a brand new car, or going to get my girl a Louis Vuitton purse. You think those things would be like the cool thing? I'm 27 and I'm doing this kind of stuff, but it really
Right.
didn't. It didn't. It was such a very instant come and go kind of thing, a temporary thing,
Yeah.
that it was never enough. If you would have
Right.
told me when I was 21, working at the parks, if I was going to make that kind of money,
Yeah.
at 26, 27, I would have told you, oh, I made it. I'm chilling,
Oh
but it was
man.
never enough.
Yeah, joy is never on the other side of success. If you're
Right,
not, if you don't have it in the first place, it's never gonna be waiting for you.
right.
I want to ask you before we wrap up on this job stuff. What was your like most oblivious moment? Like kind of like basically like immature moment or whatever you want to call it. I guess I can explain it better by the examples that I have. One is mine, one is my wife's. So she doesn't really listen to the podcast. So if she doesn't want me telling the story, then oh well. But when she was like 13, this probably broke child labor laws, but when she was 13, like she had a dance teacher that needed help at a restaurant. And so my wife like got took a couple shifts bussing tables or whatever, just as this like little 13-year-old. And so she walks up to a guy who had barely any food on his plate and was like, "Are you done with that, sir?" He's like, "Oh no, I'm gonna finish this." And she just said, "Okay," and then stood there and watched him and waited for him to like, but because as a kid she was just like, "Oh, he says he's gonna finish it. Like, great. That means he's gonna like literally take the last bite." And so she just sat there and watched and waited until he like slowly looked back at her and was like, okay, and then like took the food off the plate and handed it to her. And it's just
That's
like,
funny as hell.
yeah, and
Oblivious.
that's like kind of cute because you're like a 13 innocent, but it's also like embarrassing. Mine is way more embarrassing because at that first job, at the admissions counselor, I was 25 years old. I'm a 25-year-old married man who's like, but I've never not had a summer off. I've always been a student, whatever. Very
Right.
immature. We work in a setting where it's just open. Like the two directors had offices, but then everybody else was just open, not even like walled off cubicles, just like open desks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I very much have theater kid energy. And so like if I'm just like working on my desk, I'm usually like singing to myself and like
Ugh.
cracking jokes at people. And the vice president like of admissions comes in, and he like has had all these important jobs, and everyone's like, why does this guy even work at this failing school? Like he's been in whatever. Everyone like worshipped him, and he calls me into his office one morning. Me and him are the only ones there, and he goes, "Hey Sam, pro tip: don't sing while you work."
Period.
And now I was just like, "Oh, okay." And I was just like, "Yeah." And I like clearly wasn't getting that he was like basically like, "Hey, what you're doing." And so he's like, "By the way, pro tip is what I call giving people feedback that they need to work on." Like he had to explain he had to explain the context. And I was sitting there like, it didn't even dawn on me till weeks later. Like, oh, I've been that annoying person in the office that everybody hates. That is just at his desk singing, and everyone's trying to make like cold calls, and they're like, "Why is this weird ginger freak just singing at the
La 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 la. That's funny. Early as hell in the morning. I had a couple. So I guess I have another story that I want to tell about confrontation. But the funniest one, and it really ended up being not as much as it should have been. So when I was in my first manager job at my old company, we had offsites, and so most people should know what offsites are. But you go to a different town or part of the town or whatever, and you just do workshops to learn whatever. So we go to Austin, Texas.
action.
Yeah, exactly. Go to Austin, Texas, and it's all the managers. And my old company, we had two offices, one in Chicago and one in the Bay Area, in Mill Valley. So we're all here having fun. You know, these offsites are a little bit more loose, especially when you're talking about leadership, because it's kind of more of a tight-knit group. It's not as many. The network's a little bit tighter, so people are a little bit more loose and chill. So my boss that I worked for directly was in Mill Valley, but the guy that was above him in a different tier, like another director who I ended up working for eventually, was in Chicago. And so the Chicago vibes and the culture was very different, as you know. As you can imagine, the Bay Area vibes, but Chicago a little more blue collar. People smoke cigarettes.
Shout out Shot Rack.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know a lot about that kind of stuff. But we were a little more edgier. We drink a little bit more. We had a little more fun. Whatever, a little bit more rough. So we're at this party one of the last nights, and I'm like talking shit to this director because that's what we do in the office. Like you're kind of like making fun of him a little bit, like roasting him, or like talking smack about the company, or what do you mean? No, not even. And it wasn't even like about the company. It was literally like how me and you might talk before or after a pod of like, bro, relax, or like just saying little things that if you don't know us, like our people that watch the pod, like, oh, are they really friends type? But it's like, yeah, we're just
kind of like locker room, like not locker room talk in the way that Trumpers, but like when you're with like your teammates and it's like this is how we show love. We're kind of just like making fun. Like, we're just kind of like chatting.
Exactly. And the night before we had like me and another manager had got separated from the team and we're actually talking crazy and having fun. Whatever. We're doing our thing. So, anyways, I'm talking whatever, and then my boss, who's from San Francisco, he like, let me talk to you for a second, Danny. He was like, hey man, I think you should probably leave. And I'm drunk, so I'm like, hold on, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, like you should probably. I don't want you to ruin your career. Like he's really serious.
Not like a talking to, like, hey, you're getting kicked out the party.
Yes, like in probably a more embarrassing way because it's one-on-one and he's like dead serious. Like, hey, you should probably. I know you the guy was over there. You were kind of like talking to him a certain kind of way and. You should probably go.
Was the person you were talking to offended about it, or was just the boss?
No, he didn't give a no. My boss was overreacting because he had never seen me interact with this dude. Right. This dude was a wild boy himself. He was more wild than I was.
Right.
And we weren't in a setting to where it was like the CEO of the company seeing us and we're doing drugs and talking about having sex with our coworkers. It wasn't even that. It was like maybe we're debating sports, and I'm like, hell no, Michael Jordan's not as good as LeBron type.
Right,
that's how we were talking. He's like, yeah, you should probably go. So now I'm drunk. I am pissed drunk. But now I have to explain to this dude who I kind of barely know that though I am very drunk, the way I talk to that guy and how we converse is totally fine.
Right.
Which it probably made me sound even more drunk because like
you have even no idea. No, dude, I love that guy. Right. Me and him, we're like here. No, we're here.
So now I gotta like sober up a little bit to explain to him like, no, trust me, even though we're both messed up right now, that's just how we talk and interact, and it was fine. So I'm talking to him for like 45 minutes trying to show him, like, bro, see, I'm not drunk, right? We can, converse.
Yeah.
So that was super embarrassing, but it ended up being fun. I ended up
You
going out
need to
with.
leave.
That's what it was. That's what it
That's amazing.
was.
That's amazing.
Personified. But another story ended up being fine. We ended up drinking and going to their suite and like having fun afterwards. It ended up working, but when I tell you I was shook, I'm like,
Yeah, if my boss gives me feedback like you need to leave this party, you're like, damn, am I about to get like I'm in the doghouse forever?
yeah, but I just had to tell him, like, dog, that's just how we talk. But another story, really quickly from that time as a manager, I was I was like an individual contributor in sales, and then I went into management as like a entry level manager, a manager for an entry level sales role. But a lot of these managers that were also managers for this entry level sales role had never been individual contributors the way I was. So they kind of went into like this entry level role into managing other entry level people. So I came in to the kind of flock with a little bit more experience than others, and they felt some
Right.
kind of way about it. And I also
Yeah.
just had a little bit more of an edginess to myself. Like I just wasn't as corporate all the time.
Yeah.
And so I remember we just would butt
Rugged good
heads up.
looks,
Yeah,
tall,
exactly. Right.
athletic.
Massive penis. No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that.
We've been doing so good today. Well, that's
I
actually
know.
that's you can say that on network television because it's just the
Yeah,
anatomical correct.
exactly. And it's 45 minutes in. If you get 45 minutes in, it is what it is. But anyways, one time I remember this girl who was another manager. Everybody hated this girl. And she wanted to have a meeting with me to just talk about our relationship. And she was like, Danny, I just feel like you don't like me. And with all the joy in my heart to tell this lady was probably maybe 2 years older than me, like, yes, correct. I don't like you.
Yeah, like what we're coworkers. I'm not paid to like you. We don't got to be best friends. What are you talking about?
For people that are listening, if you've never got to openly tell a coworker that you don't like them, I suggest you do it. It's gonna make you feel so much better.
How'd she react?
She was rattled. There's nothing she could do.
Like she wasn't your boss either. It was just a
She
peer.
wasn't my boss. She was just a peer. She was a more senior peer in that role, but she wasn't more experienced than I was
Right.
as far as the scope of professionalism. So I'm like, look, ma'am, I'm going to do my job. I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. I'm not going to do anything at the detriment of you or the company. But no, I don't like you. I don't want to hang out. I don't want to go to happy hours with you. And it's like in the most blunt, upfront way. And when I tell you I left that room grinning and had probably the best lunch break of my entire life afterwards.
How'd she treat you moving forward?
It's salty. She was nothing she could do. I mean, nothing.
Yeah.
Someone tells you that.
She didn't go like try to win you over. She was just like, oh, okay, I hate
No.
this guy now then too.
What can you do because I'm not breaking the rules. I'm not being unprofessional. You wouldn't have
Honestly, I mean, in like you're almost being better. You're like I'm giving direct communication. I'm not being fake.
Right. And it's not like she was on my team where I'm telling someone that works for me, like, hey, I don't like you, so you need to figure it out. Like, we're peers. You don't, it was the most, but it was so refreshing to tell someone how you actually feel about them. So if you're listening, that's a tip. If you have a chance to tell somebody how they feel about you, that's stupid to ask you, and you know in your heart of hearts you don't like them, tell them how you feel.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been mean if you went out of your way to be like, just so we're clear, I do not like you. She asked.
Yeah.
So like don't ask questions that you can't handle the answers to.
What's this phrase? You play petty games, you get petty results. What stupid games, you get stupid results. That's what
That's stupid. Yeah. That's stupid questions get stupid answers. All that stuff.
Exactly.
That's Before we wrap this up and get out of here, I had some coworkers. I believe I have mentioned this on the pod, but like the school that I taught at out here. It was initially like I was working with my college roommate. He was like the head coach. I was the assistant coach. And our principal, whatever. I was just tight with everybody. And then our school had to close down because of like they were so far in debt. And so this for-profit school bought us out, which a private school being for-profit is kind of weird. and let's just call the old principal Mark and the new principal Jane, I guess.
Nice.
So Jane is the new principal, and none of us like her, and because she lied about her experience. She literally she was not qualified for her job, and she lied to get there, and she was terrible at her job.
Shout out to her.
And like she would say stuff like there was no and Mark was always like, yeah, I mean this job should have been mine, but like he was very cordial. Like I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to support her the best I can. If people happen to come to me, well, I've been working here for 25 years, so obviously people have a relationship with me. They're going to just come to me for advice, but I'm not going to like overstep my bounds or whatever. And so Jane is like in front of Mark and all of us. She's like, too many of you guys have been running to Daddy Mark, and it's time to come to Mommy Jane. And I'm like, man, what? What are you talking about? Like, just driving division. And so we did not like her. And so finally, one time she sent out this email that was like out of nowhere. She's like, by the way, and she'd do this all the time. No technology in class this week for middle school. No computers, nothing. And all of our stuff was online. We had like Google Classroom. We had my textbook was online. Like, and she said this literally 12 hours before school started that week. And so we're like, how are we supposed to? And so I replied all. And basically wrote out a long email being like, this is a terrible and erratic decision. None of us support this. We hate this decision.
Erratic.
And everybody was like, oh my God, thank God you said something. And she was like, she got mad at me like, well, Sam, it seems like you're the only one who feels this way. And I was like, no, I'm just the only one who doesn't care enough to suck up to you. We don't like this. And so then they ended up not hiring me back. I ended up like they couldn't legally fire me, so they found a way to be like, yeah, we will not be accepting you back. So what can you do? All right.
Shout out.
Oh, my bad.
I was going to say shout out to saying how you feel. You got to do that. You got to do a lot more at work, man. If you feel some kind of way in the best way possible, say how you feel.
Especially when, like, I sometimes do need to chill out on, like, right and wrong and fairness, but I'm like, the kids felt, she was just bad at her job. The kids felt like they were not being supported in ways that were not okay. So I'm like, I don't have a problem, like, speaking up against someone who was not good at their job. But all right, well, that's our walk down memory lane, unless you have any more job stuff.
No, that's a good call. Those are a good amount of callbacks from our
before we get
jobs.
to, I feel like I say this every time, like, hey, this will probably be a quick episode, and then we end up going an hour anyway. But this is one more callback before we get into the world famous trademark Danny's ism. Fashion changes, people, there's trends, but sometimes you look back and you're like, how was this ever cool? So we went to high school where like fitted caps were in, okay? And for some people they still are.
That was a moment. That was a moment though. Universally, that was a moment.
Yeah, and it's still a thing, like specific schools that I go to, like there's still kids wearing them, whatever, but like you would spend it seems so expensive to me. It'd be $30 for like an official Major League Baseball level hat and keep the stickers on and wear it to the side. Bro, so I used to wear this all the time outside for real. For all you visual listeners, it's like this hat where the bill of the hat is made out of jersey material with like half of a logo on it, which is not great. Okay, that's not great. But most people are like, yeah, that was kind of the era, whatever. Unfortunately, you could get your hats personalized. So some people might put their last name on it, something, or like that, but that's fine. Or they put like their girlfriend's name, kind of cringe. I have red hair. I legitimately thought this was a cool thing to put. It's a backwards on the computer. It says Ginger Mania in cursive font. I was walking around with sewn on to the back of my hat in cursive font, Ginger Mania. And, I feel like I did a lot of digging on you and would make fun of you. So I just wanted to give you that
I needed the ammo. That's nasty. But I also did that too because did you get that from Lids?
Of course. Probably? Shout out Lids, bro.
Shout out to the mall. We need more TV shows about malls in the early and mid 2000s because Lids, you get your little joint from the Lids and then they'll do the embroidery for extra little, whatever, $10-$20. Yeah. At one point I had a Lids membership. I had like that many little hats before my hairline was deteriorating. I always been a hat guy. I would get like the different colors, and it was nasty too because I would get Cincinnati Red. I mainly only wear Cincinnati Reds hats if I wear teams.
Yeah.
and I would get them in the different like colors, like
Right.
not just red and black, but like blue, like royal blue,
Yeah.
or like gray. Just like disgusting combinations that they never ever wore.
Right.
It was I had a navy. I mean, a royal blue and black Cincinnati's Reds hats. Like when have they ever worn that? Never.
Right. Were you matching it to the Jordans?
No, I wasn't. I was never crazy matchy,
Right.
but I definitely probably put it with like a little V-neck, a blue V-neck for the culture.
That's not as
100%.
bad as like the people who wear like get the black and yellow Jordan 12s and then wear a Pirates hat with like a Pirates
Yeah,
jersey, and it's just like you're
yeah.
doing too much.
Definitely
What were
had
you
a
getting
V-neck.
personalized on the back of your hats? Just your last name or what?
So my old nickname was FedEx, like sports names. So I remember I got FedEx on a couple hats.
Why was
It
it
was a good nick.
FedEx?
It was a good nickname. Yeah, FedEx.
Why? Why was it FedEx?
Uh, just like being like so it started with one of my former friends in high school. I was FedEx Air and he was FedEx Ground, just like always deliver. Like it was a corny nickname for football.
Yeah. But that's like a football, like your FedEx Air Player of the Week or whatever.
Yeah, right. So then going into college, my name it kind of stuck a little bit as FedEx, and so I got it embroidered on the back of my hat. I think my mom has the hat, but yeah,
That's incredible.
I also was nasty working too.
If you're listening and you ever embroidered a nickname or anything onto a Lids hat, or you had a partner who did that or something, please send it our way. Either take a picture, just explain it to us. Slide in our DMs at Callbacks
Please
Pod,
do.
or email us at callbackspod@gmail.com. All right, let's get to your isms to close this thing out. Danny's
Let's
ism,
close
for
it.
those new around here, it is life lessons with Danny. He calls it his isms.
A quick little ism. I think this is relevant to the strike, the writer's strike. If you're not familiar, or in LA, or in the kind of the ecosystem of LA, or even just content in general, but don't overextend yourself to people who aren't also reciprocating energy. I feel like a lot of us are givers. Maybe not a lot of us, but I feel like I'm a giver. I'm someone that tries to be considerate. I know you are someone that tries to be considerate of others a lot. And that could be super exhausting when you're giving your energy and not getting that energy back. And
Right.
it's probably it's really good for today's episode too, because that's relevant in your job. Like I work in contract work. So I don't get benefits from companies. I just get paid hourly and have to figure everything else out in my life, the rest. And I don't get guaranteed salary or PTO or nothing like that. So for us, at a certain extent, I can only give so much of my mental currency to these places, because I don't have some of that energy given back to me, whether it be stability, whether it be consistency, whether it be whatever, just investment into the technology that I need to get my job done. Like I have to buy stuff to do these jobs for these people a lot of times. Like
Right.
my old jobs, I would get a brand new MacBook every time I started. I had to buy my own Mac computer to do my jobs today. I'll write it off or whatever as a tax thing, but all in all, don't give too much energy to folks or entities that aren't giving you that energy back.
Amen, brother. I'm with that.
Yeah. This has
You
been a great
gotta-
episode though.
I agree. They're always great. Tell a friend about it.
Please.
Let's keep growing. Let's keep the reels kind of be popping off. Danny,
Yeah, man. Shout out to the growth, man. Shout out. I feel like we've grown our following a bunch this past week or so. So yeah, if you're still listening at this point, you're a diehard listener and lover of callbacks. Tell a friend, repost us, submit questions, email us, engage with us. We want to really build a community, and I think this episode was good for us to kind of get back to just learning about each other, so that our listeners can know more about us and really build this thing out.
Amen, brother. Get to know us. You'll fall in love. Let me tell you.
I don't know about that.
That has been another episode of Callbacks. Hopefully we'll be back in the studio in person together soon, because the vibes are even extra immaculate. As always, like, follow, subscribe, download, share, air skywriting, text your grandma about us. Get home safe. We love you. Bye.